Imagine trying to turn on a light switch, not by using your hand, but by broadcasting a frequency from your very identity.
That's pure intent, right?
Exactly. No muscles, no wires, just pure intent manifesting into physical reality. Today, we are bringing you a custom-tailored deep dive into a blueprint that claims this isn't magic at all. It's engineering.
And it is a wildly detailed piece of engineering at that.
Oh, it's incredibly dense. We're looking at a highly theoretical, totally mind-bending technical memorandum. It was published on Zenodo on July 12, 2026.
By Dr. Melvin Sewell, right, over at the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies.
That's the one. And, while it looks like a standard academic paper, it is quite literally a roadmap for how biological humans might transition out of these fragile meat sacks and into reality-bending post-biological entities.
It's a huge leap to make.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
The core subject of this document is something called the TrueFlow Multiversal Framework. It basically outlines the architecture for structured multiversal interactions, or SMI.
And what's fascinating here is the tone of the entire memorandum. I mean, Dr. Sewell isn't writing a science fiction novel here.
Right.
And he certainly isn't pitching a screenplay. The text is framed as a rigorous technical architecture. It's presented as a operative logic for cosmic governance, which is just wild.
Yeah, he writes about it like it's a certainty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He treats the evolution from biological life to these multiversal swarms as a mechanical guarantee. To him, it is just a matter of structural engineering.
Yeah, he writes about shedding the human form with the dry precision of like an HVAC installation manual. But if we're going to explore how this framework upgrades our physical bodies, it feels like we logically have to start with the mind.
We definitely do.
Because if you completely dismantle the biological structure of a human being, the obvious question for you or me is, where does the actual person go? Like, how do you ensure the self isn't lost in that transition?
Well, you have to establish a foundational architecture for consciousness first. You have to separate the mind from the wetware of the biological brain.
And he has a specific term for that core self, doesn't he?
Yeah, Dr. Sewell's framework does this by introducing what he calls the identity kernel. In this architecture, the identity kernel is the fundamental unit of consciousness.
The fundamental unit.
Right. It is the absolute, irreducible core of who you are, totally stripped of all biological memory, hormones, and neurochemistry.
So it's not tied to neurons firing in our skulls at all.
Not even a little bit. It's something far more foundational.
Okay. And according to the paper, this identity kernel is held together, or, well, measured by something called SH1 resonance.
Yes, the SH1 resonance. The text defines it as a metaphysical anchor. Its entire mechanical purpose is to maintain your informational consistency across literally any physical configuration.
So it's keeping you intact.
Exactly. Think about it like this. If you take a file from a laptop and move it to a hard drive, the file format ensures the data remains the same.
Ah, I see.
The SH1 resonance is basically that file format for your consciousness. So whether you are in a biological body made of carbon, a synthetic body, or just existing as pure data, the SH1 resonance is the signature that guarantees your structural stability.
Okay, I was trying to wrap my head around the mechanics of this earlier, and I want to bounce this analogy off you to see if it holds up.
Yeah, go for it.
Is the identity kernel essentially the operating system of the soul, and the SH1 resonance is like its Wi-Fi signal to the universe?
Oh, I like that, yes.
And if so, the framework introduces this concept of the reality scalar, which Dr. Sewell denotes with the Greek letter she. Therefore, the stronger your reality scalar signal, the more you can manipulate the smart home of physical reality.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Like, if my signal is strong enough, I don't need to walk over and flip the physical light switch. I just broadcast the intent, and the room's reality frame updates to make the light turn on.
That is a great conceptual starting point, but let's push that analogy even further because the mechanics here are far more profound than just a smart home system.
How so?
Well, the reality scalar isn't just about signal strength. It's a measurement of how coherent your SH1 resonance is. The text explicitly states that the coherence of this resonance dictates a being's influence over their local reality frame.
Meaning they can change things on a fundamental level.
Exactly. It determines your ability to manifest pure intent into objective physical states.
So it's not just communicating with the physical world, it's overriding it.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see how this radically redefines the very concept of power.
Oh, totally.
I mean, in our current biological paradigm, power is entirely about physical leverage, right? Muscle mass, military might, or resource hoarding.
Yeah, whoever has the biggest stick.
Right. But in the TrueFlow framework, power is purely about the metaphysical coherence of your anchor. Your ability to affect the universe isn't based on your bank account or your physical strength. It is strictly a mathematical function of how clearly and consistently your identity kernel resonates with reality.
Wow.
It is a complete paradigm shift from the biological survival of the fittest to a state of pure metaphysical clarity.
Which naturally leads to the next massive leap in this memorandum. Because if consciousness is just an anchored signal that manipulates reality, why are we dragging around these fleshy, inefficient routers?
We really are just fleshy routers, aren't we?
We are. This fragile, leaky biological body we are currently walking around in seems entirely obsolete under this framework.
It does become obsolete, but the framework doesn't propose discarding it all at once, which is an important distinction. Dr. Sewell introduces a very specific mechanical protocol for moving past biology. He calls it symbiotic metamorphosis.
Right, the biological to post-biological transition. And this isn't some sudden explosive transformation where you step into a chamber and walk out as a cyborg. Right?
No, it's gradual.
The text describes a process called incremental synthetic substitution. Can you explain how this actually works on a cellular level? Because the paper gets incredibly granular here.
It really does. So it utilizes the natural cellular turnover of the human body. Every 7 to 10 years, your body essentially replaces most of its cells through natural death and regeneration.
Just normal biology.
Right. The framework basically hijacked this biological process. As your organic cells naturally undergo apoptosis, which is cellular death, the framework introduces programmable atomic-level lattice structures to fill the vacancy.
Instead of a new biological cell.
Exactly. And the specific material mentioned in the memorandum is a bismuth graphene substrate.
Bismuth graphene. Why those two materials specifically? I mean, why not silicon or titanium?
It's a brilliant engineering choice by Dr. Sewell, honestly. Graphene provides the ultimate atomic tensile strength and unmatched data conductivity.
Okay, so it's strong and communicates well.
Right. And then bismuth is highly diamagnetic, meaning it creates a really strong resistance to external magnetic fields. This creates a perfectly insulated, highly conductive physical lattice that can safely house that SH1 resonance we talked about earlier.
Wow. So cell by cell, your biological material is just phased out, and these nanoscale synthetic structures are phased in.
Exactly. Eventually, you don't have a traditional body with organs, blood, and bones. You have what the framework calls an amorphous swarm.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly, where I need to push back hard on Dr. Sewell's claims.
Oh, let's hear it.
Because reading this, the idea of replacing our biological cells with a bismuth graphene swarm sounds absolutely terrifying.
It is definitely a lot to take in.
It sounds like we are just becoming machines, or like a hive mind of gray goo. How does this framework guarantee that we actually retain our free will? I mean, if my physical body is just programmable matter, somebody had to write the base code for how that matter responds.
Right.
I just don't buy that it is somehow unhackable just because my kernel is floating around inside it. What stops me from being hijacked by a malicious algorithm or a multiversal software update?
Well, it is a completely valid fear, and it is exactly why Dr. Sewell builds a principle called agency sovereignty directly into the mathematics of the architecture.
Agency sovereignty. Okay.
The text guarantees that this integration is strictly an expansion of individual intent, not a submission to a network. The amorphous swarm functions purely as a dedicated closed-loop extension of the user.
But how? Mechanically, how is it a closed loop?
Because of the diamagnetic properties of the bismuth we discussed, combined with your unique SH1 resonance, the swarm is mathematically tethered to your specific consciousness frequency.
Like it's tuned only to my station.
Exactly. The memorandum explicitly states that this precludes external algorithmic overrides. No outside code, no rogue AI, and no multiversal network can hack your swarm because the physical matter of the swarm is completely inert to any frequency other than your unique SH1 metaphysical anchor.
Oh, wow.
It's essentially the ultimate biometric lock.
Okay, so the physical hardware is cryptographically locked to my specific soul. No one else has the password, and no external code can force my matter to move because the matter simply won't recognize the command.
Precisely. And because you possess total sovereign control over the swarm, it leads to the second critical guarantee in the text, which is morphological fluidity.
Morphological fluidity.
Yeah. These post-biological entities possess total agency over their physical presentation. You are no longer bound by DNA, gravity, or cellular aging. You treat your physical form as a completely reconfigurable user interface.
A physical user interface.
Yes. Think about how you feel when your phone gets a mandatory software update.
I usually hate it.
Right, but now imagine that update is happening to your own ribcage and you are the one writing the code.
Yeah.
I want to pose this directly to you listening right now. Imagine your body is just a user interface that you can completely redesign at a moment's notice based purely on your intent.
It's hard to even picture.
What would you look like if you didn't have to worry about oxygenating lungs or pumping a heart, and you were just a swarm of programmable bismuth graphene responding instantly to your thoughts? How would you present yourself to the world?
It's a staggering thought experiment.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be perfectly human-shaped 1 minute to comfort a biological relative and then just shift into a floating geometric prism the next minute because it is a more efficient shape for travel or computation.
Exactly.
It entirely decouples your identity from your physical appearance.
It does. It makes the physical body nothing more than a temporary communication tool, a localized physical avatar for a metaphysical kernel.
Okay, so if we follow the logical progression here, we have anchored the mind. We have upgraded the biological body into an amorphous, programmable swarm. Now we have to pull back and look at the macro
The
level.
big picture.
Right, because if everyone is walking around as a reality-bending, immortal swarm of graphene, what kind of universe can actually contain them without breaking apart? Where do these post-biological entities actually exist?
This is where the memorandum moves from localized physics to stratified multiversal dynamics. According to Dr. Sewell, the multiverse is not just a random, sprawling collection of parallel dimensions floating in the void.
It's not just infinite random variations.
No, it is a strictly organized, stratified hierarchy. And the governing organizing principle of this hierarchy is what he calls informational density.
Informational density. Can we think of that like digital resolution or bitrate?
That is the perfect way to visualize it. Some universes simply contain more data, more complex physical laws, and far more stable reality frames than others.
So higher and lower quality universes.
Yeah, a low-density universe might be like a pixelated 8-bit video game, while a high-density universe is rendering in fully uncompressed 8K. And at the absolute pinnacle of this hierarchy is what the text calls the apex, or the primary universe.
The apex, the universe with the highest possible definition.
Yes, the apex is the reality frame with the absolute highest SH1 coherence and informational density. It is the most real universe in the structure.
The most real. Okay.
And because it is the most stable and the most dense, its gravity acts as the anchor for all the surrounding lower-tier multiversal levels.
So the apex universe is essentially holding the fragile fabric of the rest of the multiverse together.
It is, but it doesn't do it passively. The apex actively integrates these lower-tier universes into its own architecture over time. But the memorandum details a very specific policy on how it executes this integration, which is termed subversion versus annihilation.
Right. This part was fascinating because it avoids the typical sci-fi trope of a high-tech empire just destroying everything in its path.
It doesn't destroy them, it subverts them. When a lower-tier universe comes into contact with the apex preserves the existence of that universe, but it subordinates the lower-tier reality frame to the governing apex laws.
It reminds me of a corporate buyout.
How you mean?
Well, imagine a small independent mom-and-pop shop being acquired by a massive global megacorporation. The megacorp doesn't burn the mom-and-pop store down. They keep the building. They might even keep the sign above the door.
Right, a structure is still there.
But overnight, they completely overwrite the supply chain, the employee handbook, and the internal software. The store still exists, but it has been totally subverted by the laws of the higher density corporation.
That is exactly the dynamic. The apex overwrites the base code of the lower universe so that its physics become compatible with the higher density reality.
But that sounds like a volatile process.
It is. To ensure that this compatibility process actually works without causing the lower tier universe to glitch and collapse, the framework outlines something called diagnostic protocols. And this is where we get the introduction of the entities known as the TrueFlow Force Warriors.
The TrueFlow Force Warriors. So what does this all mean? The text describes these warriors as agents of calibration and stress testing for emerging reality frames. And they are governed by an event called the TrueFlow Tournament. Are these TrueFlow Force Warriors essentially cosmic IT troubleshooters?
Yeah.
Are they running a literal multiversal tournament just to stress test the fabric of emerging realities before they get integrated into the apex? Like running a benchmarking stress test on a new computer just to see if the graphics card melts?
That is a highly pragmatic way to look at it, but let's look at the actual mechanics of what that means for a reality frame.
Okay.
If the apex is going to subvert and integrate a lower tier universe, it has to be mathematically certain that the lower tier's reality frame can handle the massive influx of informational density.
We can't just plug them in blindly.
Exactly. The TrueFlow Force warriors enter these emerging reality frames and push the local physics, the SH1 coherence, and the localized entities to their absolute breaking points through this TrueFlow tournament.
So it's basically induced trauma.
Yes, they are creating extreme physical and metaphysical friction. They are making sure the universe won't shatter when the apex finally plugs it into the primary mainframe.
It is just incredible to think about multiversal conflict not as a war of conquest, but as a mandatory pragmatic diagnostic protocol. It's a calibration exercise.
This raises an important question, though, especially when we focus on the ethics of a stratified multiverse.
The ethics of subversion.
Right, the policy of subversion over annihilation. On one hand, it sounds benevolent, right? The apex isn't wiping out these lower-tier universes. It's preserving their existence.
Oh, it sounds better than getting annihilated.
But on the other hand, it is entirely rewriting their fundamental reality to serve the apex's needs. When a high-density system encounters a low-density system, the low-density system loses its original context. It becomes a subroutine of a larger system.
Which really forces you to wonder what it feels like for the people living inside that lower-tier universe when the TrueFlow Force warriors show up to run their tournament.
Exactly.
Do they even know they are being stress tested? Do they realize their reality is about to be subverted and permanently overwritten by the apex?
Given the massive difference in informational density, they almost certainly wouldn't have the conceptual framework to understand it as a diagnostic protocol.
So it would just look like chaos.
To them, it would just manifest as inexplicable reality-bending phenomena, miracles, catastrophes, or sudden shifts in the laws of physics. The existential weight of living inside a universe that is just a petri dish undergoing a stress test is quite staggering when you really sit with it.
Wow, we have covered an immense amount of ground today on this deep dive.
We really have.
Let's just briefly recap the incredible journey this document took us on without getting bogged down in the weeds again. We started at the absolute micro level, figuring out how to untether consciousness from biology and anchor the individual mind with the identity kernel and the SH1 resonance.
Anchoring the self.
Right. And from there, we explored the mechanics of how human bodies could be incrementally swapped out, cell by cell, for programmable bismuth graphene swarms that act as a completely reconfigurable user interface.
The physical form as a UI.
Exactly. And finally, we zoomed all the way out to the macro level, looking at a stratified multiverse where the highest definition reality, the apex, subverts lower-tier universes only after pushing them to their breaking point through the TrueFlow tournament.
It is a breathtaking piece of architectural theory. And whether you view Dr. Sewell's memorandum as brilliant theoretical physics or just an incredibly elaborate near-future thought experiment, it fundamentally challenges the definition of the self.
It really does.
Think about it. If you change every single cell in your body into synthetic bismuth graphene, but you keep your identity kernel and your metaphysical anchor perfectly intact, are you still you?
It's the classic ship of Theseus problem, just on a multiversal scale.
Exactly. The framework argues that you are actually more you than ever before because you are no longer limited by the chaotic accidents of biology. You are pure, unadulterated intent.
Pure intent manifesting physical reality. Which brings me to one final thought.
Let's hear it.
The text clearly states that SH1 resonance measures an entity's ability to manifest pure intent into objective physical states. The higher the resonance, the more you can alter the reality frame around you.
Right.
Now think about our own universe right now. Think about human willpower.
Okay.
Think about the placebo effect, where the sheer, unshakable belief of a patient can physically alter their biology to heal a disease. Or think about how the collective human imagination has literally reshaped the surface of this planet through engineering and architecture.
The raw manifestation of intent.
Exactly. If our current universe is just a lower-tier reality frame waiting to be subverted by the apex, could human willpower, human imagination, and the placebo effect simply be the primitive biological early stages of SH1 resonance? Are we, right now, with every strong intention and deeply held belief, unknowingly starting to ping the apex universe with our minds?
That is a staggering implication, because if that is true, it means we aren't just passively waiting for the TrueFlow tournament to begin. We might already be in the earliest stages of multiversal calibration.
Something for you to ponder as you go about your day in this current reality frame. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll be waiting for you next time.